Welcome to another episode of Mr. Plumb's Thoughts. The first video I put up is actually doing a little bit better than I thought it would, so I appreciate everyone who's viewed that or liked or shared or even commented on it. It's definitely appreciated. Today I thought I'd do a little video on Brigham Young. A friend asked me to do this video, and it's I don't know, I had to think about it for a little bit because Brigham Young is actually quite a controversial character. Really, when you get down into the nuts and bolts of the things he said, not really that controversial. But usually people will take something he said completely out of context and then freak out about it. So I thought I'd address some issues with him. Not a whole lot, because that would turn this into a several hour long episode. So I think really I'll talk about today, at least, who he was, and how he became the prophet, and maybe a couple of his biggest controversies. So first off, who was Brigham Young? He was born in 1801. Just a little bit older than Joseph Smith. He found the Book of Mormon in I think it was 1832. He read it, he dug through it, he loved it, and that's when he met Joseph Smith, and pretty much overnight they became best friends. Pretty inseparable after that. He in 1835, when the first Quorum of the 12 was assembled, Brigham Young was chosen. He became the president of the Quorum of the 12, and he was a very, very staunch defender of Joseph Smith and everything Joseph Smith went through. Probably his first really big controversy came with his ascension to the presidency. After Joseph Smith died, a couple months after, there was a big meeting, and no one was really sure what to do when the prophet dies, right? Like, where was the church supposed to go to? And there were a lot of differing opinions. Joseph Smith's wife, Emma, and her son believed it was supposed to go through him. There were claims that arose that Joseph had anointed his son to take over. I find those claims really weird. I haven't found any firsthand accounts from Joseph on the matter, but it really kind of stands in stark contrast to everything Joseph Smith stood for and everything he believed. I don't see why he would have chosen to pass on through a bloodline when everything up to that point had been through callings and laying on of hands. So I don't buy much into the idea that he anointed his son. But why would he have done that anyway? Joseph wasn't expecting to die, right? So it's really weird that he would have allegedly had this whole secession planned out, when he wasn't expecting to die. But the reality of the matter is that Joseph had already received the revelation of secession in the church. Not many people really understood it clearly. It became more clear as the years went on. But what happened is, when a couple months after Joseph died, there was a big meeting. A whole bunch of people got together. Everyone was arguing their point of, who should take over and what should happen. And when Brigham Young stood up, there was this whistle as he talked. Now, this whistle was something that Joseph Smith was known for. He broke one of his teeth in one of his encounters with mobs. And after that time, he always had a whistle every time he talked. So when Brigham Young got up, there were a whole bunch of people that claimed that they heard that whistle as as Brigham Young talked. And that's what convinced them that Brigham Young was supposed to be the one. Others claimed that they heard Joseph Smith's voice entirely. And there were even some accounts that they saw Joseph Smith instead of Brigham Young. These are all anecdotal accounts, whether they really happened or not. What is for certain is that a majority of the congregation did vote and sustain Brigham Young as the next president. And Brigham Young ended up being the one that led the church across the plains in the Exodus over to the Salt Lake Valley. By the time he died in, I think, 1877, he had established over 150 settlements across the Utah and surrounding areas. So he really did quite a bit of great work. But there are controversies. The biggest one that I think I want to address today is the Adam-God Doctrine. Now, you need to be careful with this one. It gets talked about a lot. But you have a lot of members that won't touch it because they'll say, oh, the church disavowed that doctrine. But that's actually not true. If you go read what they said, and words are very important when you're studying these things, right? Especially historians that write things, they're very careful with their words. So basically what you have is you have the church that came out and they disavowed what they called the Adam-God theory. Now the theory is not the Adam-God doctrine. This is a completely separate thing. So what happened is Brigham Young received the Adam-God Doctrine revelation, and he had taught it while he was alive. He had become part of the endowment ceremonies, things like that. Pretty much, all the members knew about it in his day. But after he died, there were people that started claiming that what Brigham meant was that Adam was God the Father. Now, Brigham Young never taught that, and he never implied it. So that was just really a misunderstanding on a lot of people's part. If you go and read the things Brigham Young said, he was, pretty clear about these things. And it comes, the main controversy comes from one particular sermon he said, or he delivered, where he said something, again, these thoughts are off my head. I'm not looking at a script or anything, but it was something like that Adam was our Father and our God and the only God with whom we have to do. Now that's caused a whole bunch of people to melt down, and this is where people started saying, oh, that must mean that Adam's God the Father. So this cult arose. The church actually called it a cult that arose, that started saying this after Brigham Young died. So why did the church actually distance itself from this? From what I can gather from my study of church history, is that a prophet receives a revelation, but not all prophets and apostles receive that same revelation. And so Brigham Young received it and he started teaching it. But when he died, there were questions that arose, and no other prophet or apostle that was living at the time could answer those questions. So the church historically will distance itself from doctrines like that. It's important to note that the church never said that Brigham Young, that his words were false or that the doctrine was false. They explicitly said that the theory that Adam was God the Father is false doctrine. And we should remember that. But here's the key to this. A lot of people will just take a line out of context. So they read this line, that Adam was our Father and our God, and the only God we had to do with, and they stop right there. And they're like, okay, well, obviously Brigham was a false prophet. Like, what's going on here? If they bothered to read, like a couple sentences further, they would have found that Brigham Young clearly stated that the Godhead, when it came to the creation of the world, consisted of three beings. Elohim, which is God the Father, Jehovah, which is Jesus Christ, and Michael. We know Michael, the archangel, is Adam. So what Brigham Young is saying, he didn't explicitly say, Adam was the Holy Ghost, but that's the only conclusion you can really draw here, right? The third member of the Godhead is the Holy Ghost, and the other two were mentioned, which logical deduction then says that what Brigham was saying is that Michael was the Holy Ghost. But wait a second, Michael's not the Holy Ghost now, right? Correct. So Adam was given all of the spirits that would ever come into this earth. He was made the patriarch over those. He wasn't the one who created those spirits. He didn't give birth to them, or however that happens on a spiritual level, we're not quite sure, right? So we are not Adam's spiritual children, but he was set as the patriarch over all of our spirits and still is to this day. That's why he came in as the first man, and all man came through him, is because he is the first patriarch. And if he is the Holy Ghost, that would be capital G God, right? So Adam is the only God with whom we in the flesh have to do with. Some of you might not like that answer. I really don't care. This is kind of where I am with my understanding. If you have some information that could correct my understanding and make it better, then definitely share it with me. But I've studied this matter out pretty intensely and know quite a bit about it. So the next part about Adam-God that really throws people off is there's a line in there where he says that Jesus Christ, when he was conceived by the same being, with a capital B, that was in the garden. And a lot of people then said, oh, well, clearly he's saying that Adam was the father of Jesus Christ. But that's actually not what he said. who was the being in the garden? It wasn't Adam. It wasn't Adam's garden. Adam was the caretaker, right? It was God's garden. It was the Garden of Eden, the garden of God. And who did Adam walk and talk with in the garden? It was God the Father. So when Brigham Young says that Jesus Christ was conceived by the same being who was in the garden, he's clearly referring to God the Father. Now, a lot of these things become clear when you read Brigham's other works. If you just read that one sermon, you're probably going to be, walk away a little bit confused by it. But if you read all of his sermons, you read all the things that he talked about, that sermon becomes a lot more clear. So that's kind of the primary beef with Adam-God. The church distanced itself from it, never said it's false doctrine, but they said this is not a doctrine we're going to teach right now because we don't know the answers. We can't satisfactorily answer these questions. And now here I am answering it for you, right? But I'm not telling you this is doctrine. Like, I'm not telling you this is revealed truth from the church. I'm just telling you this is my understanding based on my own research, my own study. And I encourage you to read for yourself and know for yourself, and not just take what people like me tell you, right? You need to come to know these things for yourself, otherwise you'll be misled. There's a whole bunch of other controversies Brigham Young was involved with, but I think for right now we'll just leave it at that, because I'm getting up about 11 and a half minutes here, and I don't want to have these videos be too long. So I'll definitely come in and I'll make more videos about Brigham Young for you. We'll discuss things like blood atonement, and the question of polygamy, which if you watch my other video, I kind of briefly mentioned in there Brigham Young's role in that. But there's a lot more to it as far as Brigham Young is involved. So I can go through all of that with you guys. But for today, let's just stick with this. And I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.